Okay, here we go. We're going to start with our new value scales. I've only got 3 tubes of paint out in front of me. I've got ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and titanium white. We're going to make our own black. You notice I've upgraded my palette to styrofoam, a little easier to work on and a little easier to clean so I can reuse it. I'm going to put out a little more than you did last time, about fingernail size blobby of ultramarine blue, and right next to it, but not touching, the same size of burnt umber. If you mix ultramarine blue and burnt umber together 50-50, you'll get black. And on the opposite side, I'm going to put out about that amount combined of titanium white. Okay? So that's what my palette looks like, and I'm leaving lots of space in the middle because that's where I'm going to mix my colors. I've got my palette knife again, I've got water, I've got paper towel, and I've got my value scales. And we're going to start, your paper's going to go this way with the 2 big rows and then the 2 littles and then this big row. We're going to start right up here, and I wrote next to it black plus white, but you're going to make the black. So you're just going to mix these together. Oh, this is much nicer mixing on. Make sure it's completely mixed, and you're practicing your mixing, you're practicing not getting the paint on the top of the palette knife. Remember everything you did on the first one. Don't worry about it if it was a little rough. This one will be better. Try to keep your paint combined, okay? And after you're done mixing, put it back together into a little pile. Try not to let it grow and cover up the whole palette. Wipe off everything you can so the paint is on there. Dunk this in my water without really touching, and then give my palette knife a wipe. Remember, if I'm mixing, my brush is clean. If I'm painting, my palette knife is clean. So that's going to sit there. I'm going to use this brush this time. I'm going to wet it and then basically dry it so that there's no like pouring water on it. And I'm going to take a little bit of this paint, and when I load this brush, I'm just going to keep the paint right at the tip of it. Okay, right there at the edge. I don't want any paint up here touching the metal. I'm going to move that out of the way. This brush is great for doing edges. And what I'm going to have you do is just point at a little more water to make it flow. Sorry. Point at the edge that you want to make. And then just kind of draw your brush along that edge. Pick up more paint as you need it, but again, just keep it right on the edge. And I'm going to rotate my paper around so that I'm always pointing at the edge that I'm making. And by the time I do that to all 4 sides, I will have basically filled in the whole thing. Okay, so point at the edge that you're creating. That way it'll be a beautiful, nice, sharp, clean edge. And then point at this one. For this demo, I'm not going to make you watch me paint all of the boxes in because that will take too long and it's silly. But that's what I want the boxes to look like. I want them to have nice clean edges, and then I want you might have just noticed I went across the whole box, almost from the top to almost the bottom, and I'm just smoothing out the paint. I want a nice even layer. I don't want any thick and thin places, no big lumps and bumps, and no watery transparencies. I'm going to rinse my brush by pouncing it on the bottom, and then I'm going to just set that aside. So now I'm going to mix, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this box and I'm going to mix here. I'm going to make my middle gray, okay? And the way I'm going to mix that is by taking part of, maybe not quite half, of my black that I made, and I'm in the middle of my palette area, and I'm going to take an equal amount of white, and I'm going to put it with it, okay? So 50-50, shadows, sorry. And then I'm going to mix that, and again, make sure it mixes completely, and this is your middle gray. So this one's going to go in the middle, okay? It's a gorgeous, nice, neutral gray. So this black plus white grayscale is what's called a neutral grayscale. Set that over there. So I'm skipping this one, remember. My brush has just a teeny bit of water, and I'm going to skip to the middle one. So this is my middle gray, and again, point at your edges. I don't really want to make you watch me paint rectangles, but I'll be quick. You're gonna take your time. I'm gonna go a little bit quick, okay? So point at your edges. If it's like dry and like not covering, just take a teensy bit more water and add it to your paint, and that will fix that. You can see that it flows much better just by adding that teeny bit of water. Okay, now I'm gonna mix for the two colors that go on either side of my middle gray. Remember, when you're all done, take your brush and just run it right across the surface from almost the bottom to almost the top, just to make it nice and smooth. So it looks something like that. Okay, rinse your brush, because I need to mix. So now my brush is clean. So I need the two colors that go on either side, all right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my middle gray and I'm gonna split it in half. And I'm gonna put part of it there and the other part of it there. To this one, I'm gonna add an equal amount of black. To this one, I'm going to add an equal amount of white. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna create just two nice evenly spaced steps of this grayscale. This is kind of like if you were gonna go to Home Depot and you were gonna buy paint. You look at those paint chips where it goes from light to medium, darker medium to dark. Okay, so that's that one. That one's gonna go toward the black that you've already got painted. And then this one will go on the other side of that middle gray. So just make sure it's mixed all together. And you'll notice when I'm done mixing, I'm pulling these together into their little piles again. I'm not leaving them all spread out. Rinse my palette knife, give it a wipe. Okay, so if I turn this way, it might make more sense. So this gray goes in between the black and the middle gray, so it's gonna go right there. Teeny bit of water. Load my brush. Don't put too much paint on your brush, otherwise your edges will stink. What do you do if your edges stink? Well, here's the deal with acrylic and why it's so lovely to work with. If something goes wrong, if you wait 5 minutes, you can paint right over it. No big deal, okay? Acrylic is great like that. It dries so fast, and if I make a mistake, and very often I do because art brain is different than organizational brain. So sometimes I'll paint the wrong color in the wrong spot because I'm thinking about color instead of thinking about spots. But if I just wait a few minutes, I can fix it. Just make sure it's nice and smooth. Okay, so now I've got 3 nice steps there, dark, medium, and light. All right, and now I've got this one all mixed. This is my next one. It goes right here. Rinse my brush though. I don't want it to be streaky and mixed with the other one. A little bit of water. Load my brush. Point at my edges. You'll notice I repeat myself a lot. It's because I want you to hear the routine. Once you have the routine, you'll know what you're doing, and this will be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Point at my edges, okay? This brush is just so good for painting these straight lines. Pick up my brush, pick up a little paint. Whoop. Now, do you see what I just did right there? I made a little bit of a mistake. I pushed a little too far into my middle. But it's okay, later I can just take my middle gray and I can fix it. No big deal. Now, I don't have this last one mixed yet. What am I gonna do? Anybody know? I'm going to take my lightest gray and I'm gonna add white again, 50-50. I don't need all of this, so I'm just gonna take part of it because otherwise I'll just have to make a gallon of paint and that's just silly. So my lightest gray, ooh, where'd that yellow come from? And a little bit of white, same proportion, 50-50. If you mix a color and you're like, but that doesn't look different, add a little more of whatever it needs. Add a little more white if you think, oh, that's not light enough. Okay, wasn't light enough maybe. Add a teeny bit more white. I just did it just to show you. Okay, so just mix that, pull it together, leave all the paint on the palette. Don't wipe it off on here. That's a waste of paint. You'll notice there's not very much over here on my paper towel, just a little. And now I'm ready. Load my brush, point at the edge that I want to make. I'm going to try and get rid of that black outline in between because I don't like it. Again, this paper has been treated. I brushed a clear gesso on this. Gesso is basically just a clear acrylic. And it just seals the paper so that it will take the acrylic better. Okay, and that's it. That's the whole first row done. So normally I would be grading you, and I'll be looking at it, but mostly I want you to look at your colors and practice mixing. But normally I would be grading on the quality of your edges, so I'm gonna look at that, just so you know. And then I would also be grading you on, do I see, you know, 5 nice, significant steps? That's what you want to see. I don't want this to be pure white. Make sure you mix a gray for this last one, okay? Thank you, thank you. See you on the next row.